This is a Renegade Media Network podcast.
I've got an all-new promo code for the Zippix Toothpicks site over at zippixtoothpicks.com. You guys know I love these. I was the first podcast to have these guys advertise for them because I actually reached out to them. I already used the product. I might as well see if they want to be a sponsor, and they agreed to. So that should tell you a lot about what good guys they are over at zippixtoothpicks.com. They are flavored nicotine toothpicks. Do you remember those cinnamon flavored toothpicks you would get when you were younger? This is like the adult version. They got nicotine in the toothpicks. They are quite good. And it's a cheap alternative to smoking, dipping, vaping. Guys, please quit vaping. It looks ridiculous. These toothpicks, however, do not, and you don't have to go outdoors or be awkward. You can stay in your office, you can stay in the bar, you can be in the plane. Any of these places, you can have the toothpick. No one cares you got a toothpick in, and you're getting that nicotine fix that you might crave. So, zippixtoothpicks.com, promo code COUNTERFLOW. Promo code COUNTERFLOW will get you 20% off of your order, and you will love these, I promise you. Go check them out.
You are now listening to the Counterflow Podcast, a place for dissonant voices and unapproved opinions.
You get split in fucking half, but I call the hologram brass. But I am the center inside the placenta of math. You clash with cyanide gas and die fast. Rhythmical equivalent of solids, liquid and gas. We smash your sinus with the power of Lord Titus. But I am the virus inside of the iris of Cyrus.
Here is your host and humble narrator, Buck Johnson.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Counterflow Podcast. You already know who I am, and I bet many of you know who my guest is today. We're going to get to him in just a second. I did want to say thank you to the people that gave me, there's a lot of good feedback on the episode last week on the neo-reactionary philosophy. I appreciate the kind words, people trickling in still to the Telegram group, Counterflow with Buck Johnson Telegram group. I love being in there and getting to chat back and forth with you guys, seeing the articles that y'all post, and getting to post some things myself. I definitely enjoy the back and forth in there. Lots of good people in that group. And people trickling into the YouTube page. Like I've said before, I gave it so little love for the first few years. And so that kept the subscriber numbers down because I didn't really care about it, to be quite honest. But now all of these interviews are up on the YouTube page. It's video and audio. You can see the beautiful man that is Hotep Jesus on this episode today if you go to the YouTube page, Counterflow with Buck Johnson. And like I've mentioned, we're doing some live streams that will only be on the YouTube page, not this podcast feed. So we will have a few of those. I've already got some in the works coming up very shortly. You guys know I'll be doing another reading with Tho Bishop of the Rothbard Rockwell Report, Tho's republishing all of those. So we have lots of good things in store for the YouTube page. So I highly recommend that. My guest today is Hotep Jesus, aka Brian Sharp. Well, one of the reasons why I got him on the show here, besides the fact that he's always really interesting to hear and to talk with, he's going to be at my house later this year on the weekend of October 8th through 10th of 2021. Thaddeus Russell is putting on Renegade University Weekend here in Lockhart, Texas. Yes, at my house. I've got a 1-acre spread in the back, and that's where the event will take place. I will be there, of course. Thaddeus Russell will be there, and here's the other guests. Hotep Jesus, who's with us today on the show, Jack the Perfume Nationalist, the great Scott Horton, Deirdre McCluskey, and Cody Wilson. I can also tell you that outside of that list I just gave you, there will be some other people at this event that you know of. Some other, I hesitate to use the word celebrities because it's so corny, but some names that you recognize, let's put it that way. My personal invite list, of course, is part of that. So the VIP dinner will be Friday night. We are hosting, and for those of you that don't know, Lockhart, Texas is the barbecue capital of Texas, which pretty much makes it the barbecue capital of the world. And we are having some of the best catered to the VIP dinner here that Friday evening. All of the guest speakers will be a part of that. And I think we're going to have some good times. I will put a link every episode until then. There's going to be a link on the show notes page for each episode. And click that link. You can, if there's still VIP tickets available, you can buy them. Otherwise, you can buy general admission. And we will see you guys in October. You will also see in October, not just me, like I mentioned, but Hotep Jesus, my guest today. Let me quickly, if you're going, what is Hotep? Most of you guys know who he is, but it's a word that means peace or satisfaction, among other things. Hotep Nation is a group of people looking to restore integrity to that term Hotep because it's been smeared by left-wing black media and the likes. Hotep Nation is about self-empowerment, self-accountability, and independence. In this interview, we talk about things like, integration is infiltration. That's an interesting phrase that Hotep uses. We get into why he uses that. And I don't know, or things like maybe, do you think the left is using the black community to maybe further their own agenda to amass power and control? We'll get into things like that, and I will waste your time no longer. Look who I have here today. Hotep Jesus, welcome to the show, sir. How are you?
I'm here, man. Thank you. Good. Thank you for having me, man.
Yeah, man, this is exciting. You'll be at my house in October, I believe, for the Renegade University Texas edition. Before I start this deep conversation here, you've never been on here before, and just in case there's a listener or two that maybe has been under a rock and doesn't know who you are, and they're saying, Hotep Jesus, who the heck is that? Answer that for them.
Serial entrepreneur, tech entrepreneur, and author. Succinctly, I'm a professional nobody. Another running joke I have is I'm a reincarnated ascended master. I've been here before, been in this realm before, and I'm very familiar with it. And it allows me to decode the matrix almost with ease. But yeah, man, I don't know. I just, I'm a thinker. You know, I'm very analytical. I like to structure things. I like to zoom out and zoom in. You know, I like to look at the micro. I like to analyze the macro. Really, I'm very objective. You know, I like to remove my own personal emotions from certain topics. I like to put my feet in other people's shoes. You know, practice some empathy, and get a better understanding of this world, you know, that we live in. That's really one of my life goals, is just understand what's happening.
There's not enough people trying to do that. Let's touch upon Hotep, the definition, the lineage, because that's interesting as well.
Yeah, Thaddeus Russell has succinctly defined Hotep as it exists under the Hotep Nation brand to mean self-mastery. And when he said that, I was like, that's exactly it. That's exactly what we preach. If you ever heard my Joe Rogan interview, you know, I told him, you know, one of the things I said was, the only thing you got to defeat is yourself. Yeah, can you defeat your own mind? And if you can get out your own way, miraculous things can happen. So, you know, Hotep is about, you know, analyzing every single facet of your life and calibrating it, you know, making sure that it's in alignment to what's going to bring you what you want, essentially, you know, what you desire, out of the goodness of your heart, of course. The selfless desires. You know, there's one thing to have selfish desires and there's selfless desires, for example, right? I always tell dudes to ask chicks this question when you want to vet them out. Say, yo, I'll give you one wish. You can have anything in the world. What would you want? If she wishes for something for herself, whew, it's a red flag. It's a red flag. In fact, you're not into Dragon Ball Z, are you?
I'm not.
Okay, so Dragon Ball Z, they had a tournament of power. And it was run by these little gods. They're like these little, like, funny looking, they look like kids. But they're gods, like they'll destroy you, like with a snap of the fingers, right? So they hold this tournament. All the different universes have to fight in this tournament. And then at the end, you basically get a wish. And you can wish for anything you want. Well, at the end, Goku won, and Goku wished, because if you lost in this tournament, you died. That's it. They banished you, you're dead. You didn't exist any longer, except in your ethereal form. So Goku wished for everybody to come back to life, because if your universe lost, your universe was completely destroyed. He wished everybody to come back to life, and the gods started celebrating. And they said, yeah. And they said, well, what would happen if I wished for something different? They said, we would have destroyed all of you. Right? So, that's why I said, when you want to vet somebody, ask them that question. You have one wish, what would it be? And if they wish for something that's selfish, it's usually a red flag. People who have one wish would think higher and say, how can we all benefit from this wish? What, like somebody say, hey, I wish for world peace. Right. It's like, wow, that, you gave up your one wish that could have been for you, but you created this peace on earth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's Hotep. Hotep means peace, right? Hotep means satisfaction, to be at ease in ancient Metaneta or ancient Egyptian language.
Yeah.
That's Hotep. You can also peruse the FAQ on hotepnation.com.
I got a lighthearted question too. I heard you say in an interview that I think it was your uncle was a wrestler.
He was a wrestler, yeah.
What are you? Is it like pro wrestler?
No.
Like high school wrestling, high school, college, real thing.
Yeah, the real wrestling. Yeah, he might still ref. I'm not sure. But yeah, he was. That's how he went through college. On wrestling.
Right.
But yeah, he was one boy out of I think it's 4 other girls. So, he went into like the most masculine thing you could do when he was in school, and he wrestled. So yeah.
Were your parents political growing up when you were young?
To say my parents are political is to say that I'm political. Like, people say, hey, you talk a lot about politics. I'm like, nah, I don't. I talk about how politics might be affecting us, the effects of policies. I'm not exactly talking about the politics of things. I'm more focused on like the bigger agenda. But my dad, when I was younger, he used to sit me down and make me listen to Farrakhan, maybe listen to what he just said here. You know what I mean? It would. He put me on to, conspiracy theory sources, that would Rex 84 and all these different types of situations. So my dad was very much in tune with, what was going on. And yeah, so I wouldn't say political. It's more like very conscious.
Okay. Yeah. I've heard someone describe you as a right-wing black nationalist.
A right-wing black nationalist. That's interesting. Okay. It's a lot going on there.
There is. I was going to ask you about that.
Well, right-wing has negative connotations that come with it. Usually it means like anti-government, stuff like that. And I wouldn't say anti-government. I believe that if people would like to be governed, there should be a government for them. I'm just not with a government for me. So I'm not anti-government. In fact, I would support a government that was run by me.
There you go. King Hotep.
Hell yeah,
I would too.
Yeah, I think we all would, right? So I'm not anti-government, in that respect. Black, there's a lot going on there. What was the other one? Conservative?
No, black nationalist.
Nationalist. It's tough. For the most part, it's like accurate. I'll say it's like 60% accurate. If we're just using these terms loosely, I wouldn't describe myself as that. But if somebody said, hey, he's a right-wing black nationalist, it's like, yeah, but when you put all those things together, like, what do you get? What comes to mind? You think of like guys marching down the street with guns. It's like, no,
right.
I'm not a right-wing black nationalist. I'm not like out there yelling, oh, white man gotta die. You know, it's like, no, like I'm about to have an event in Vegas and it's gonna be a bunch of white dudes there, right? So I'm not like a black nationalist like that. You know what I mean? But I do believe in looking at the black problem as if it was a nation. You know, like I talk about when we talk about critical race theory, I say you can't talk about critical race theory without talking about GDP. You know, so it's like, what's the output of this groups of people? Because nation is just some arbitrary term that we throw on top of a group of people. And the only difference between that is somebody who believes there should be a head of state, right? But, you know, nationalist and, you know, these loose terms don't really describe what it is. And when they separate us by race, right? So it's just like, all right, so race, nation, however you want to describe this cohort, because that's really all it is. It's just a cohort of people. This cohort, if they have some sort of defunctness, you know, how do you alleviate that? Or how do you show them how to alleviate it themselves, which would be better because that would make them self-sustainable. And I just believe that they don't want black people to be self-sustainable, which is why they won't look at it as a nation, right? Because isn't that how you judge nations? You say, okay, what's the gross domestic product of this nation, right?
Right.
So when they say nationalist, I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of a nationalist where I look at things in that technical terms, like what's this group of people? Okay, we call it a nation, a village, whatever. What's their gross domestic product? Is it $2? Is it $10? What's coming out of this? And what are the different markets that are contributing to this GDP? You know, so I'm a nationalist in that respect. You know, just from using jargon and how to analyze groups of people. You know, but I'm not like out here like a right-winger. I'm more centered than anything.
Okay.
You know, like on the abortion thing, I'm pro-choice, right? Like I don't believe that the government should tell people what they should do with their lineage, with their own genealogy. I'm also not with the fact that Planned Parenthood promotes it like it's cool. I hate the fact that it's called Planned Parenthood, but less than 5% of their services actually go to prenatal care.
Right.
The rest of it goes to you know what.
Yeah.
And then they're making it seem like babies' lives don't matter. They're making jokes about that operation. And I think it's a very disgusting operation. It turns my stomach thinking about the operation, right?
Yeah.
So, but again, it's like where you have to be objective at some point. It's like, should you tell this group of people, this nation, how they can design their gene pool? That's what we're really saying. Because the woman decides the future of the gene pool, right? By how she selects her mate. And then when she gives birth, that's the new gene pool that's going to be created from that. And a lot of this comes back to like the Black Extermination Project with Margaret Sanger. And they're trying to destroy certain gene pools, right? And try to remove these undesirables, so to speak. But what if a nation wanted to practice that? What if a nation, for example, Rome, Rome practiced that, you know, being genetically pure. They put the boys through a gogi and ran them through a test. And if you didn't survive the test, if the baby wasn't born proper, they threw it off a cliff. If the baby was born deformed, there was no deformities because they got rid of that gene pool. If it was born, you know, maybe, you know, midget or something like that, or little people, they would just toss it. But when you look at Rome, a nation without education and how they stood for so long, what was it? It was like that real brutish nationalism. That desire to have that gene pool, but it all ran around the love of Rome. So they say, oh, he's a black nationalist. Okay. Well, what's a black person who loves black people? That to me sounds like the left. Because they talk all this stuff, oh, black people love black, you know, black girl magic. And so you're a black nationalist.
Right.
So when they start throwing these terms around, I'm like, where are we going with this?
Yeah. I usually don't love talking about race because there's so many bad actors
Yeah.
involved in that discussion, especially on the white left.
Mm.
And it feels like they're being dishonest, and they're trying to prop up certain things that they're for, and it may have some nefarious underpinnings, I would say.
Hmm.
And then you get to the elite. They always need an enemy to kind of maintain their
Yes.
influence and power. For a long time, it was Islamic terrorism,
Hmm.
and now all of a sudden, I've heard that there's a white supremacy problem, and it's the biggest threat. Now they've asked the Secretary of State to go to the UN so the UN can investigate systemic racism in the U.S.
Mm.
Uh, the irony of some of that is, to me, that the systemic racism is sometimes propped up by the people that are trying to quote unquote fix it. Um,
Hmm.
where do you sit on this kind of general topic?
That's
What's your
something I always say. That's something I always say. I said, when we think about arguing, say the first thing you have to do is accept your opponent's argument. Okay, let's say what you say is true. Then what? If there is systemic racism, who runs the systems?
yeah?
It ain't Earl from Alabama with his Confederate flag and MAGA hat. I'll tell you that for damn sure. Have you driven through Delaware? Have you driven through Virginia? These people aren't the ones running the major corporations.
Mm-hmm.
It's not them. So if there's systemic racism, there's some system blocking, who's running that system? Maybe you need to look at your congressman. Maybe you need to look at your local city council. Why don't you start there?
Mm-hmm. Maybe the heads of some of these corporations that kind of use the clever slogans to kind of maybe take some heat off of them and act like they're actually, proponents of BLM and rainbow flags and whatnot.
I don't I don't mind the corporations being involved. It's just it's a catch-22, man. It really is. It's like corporations need to be involved, but when corporations get involved, things get sticky.
Mm-hmm.
And if people want to do nefarious things with their corporations, that's the karma that they want to bear. I think that we can use corporations in a positive manner. I'm not interested in, game respect game. In the streets, I'm not from the streets, but in the streets, it's like that certain code. It's like, you don't, even man code, right? It's like, you don't cock block, right? Like, you see your homie like about to go get with a girl and you're like, yo, I want to go home. It's like, yo, chill out, wait like 20 minutes, let him get her number or something, you know what I mean? Or her Instagram account, whatever they do these days. So I don't believe in like cock blocking, if however other people want to operate, that's on them. I think what we can do is you can use them as case studies and understand how they do what they do, why they do what they do, and then use it for our own purposes. I think a lot of it comes down to ignorance. People don't know that symbiotic relationship between corporation and government. And the corporations have sat on top of the government. I tracked it in my book, man. I tracked it back as far as the 16th century. That the corporations was running the crowns in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
In my book, The Patriot Report, Unmasking the Conspiracy of War, like Unmasking the Conspiracy of Money and War. In my book, I talk about the crowns. And I asked the question, I say, would you rather be a traitor? Or would you rather be a king? Because the king borrowed money from the corporation.
Mm-hmm.
Yo, I'm broke. Yo, my nation, my people turning against me. Oh, I got a war coming up. Or I want to invade. Yo, let me borrow some money. I need to invade this territory. And then that corporation's funding both sides.
Yeah.
Right?
It sounds familiar.
Then you got people making the money. Imagine you the king and you got all this gold. Now you have to mint this money. You mint these coins to start having circulation for your economy. Who did that? Who minted those coins? Somebody had to mint them. And whoever was minting the coins was calling a lot of shots.
Yeah.
Or at least was in the position to.
Yeah.
At the very least, was in a position to call a lot of shots. So when you understand the world and the history of money, and that's why I did my first book, I wanted to do the history of money, and as it relates to politics and war. So when people look at World War I, World War II, Civil War, Revolutionary War, when people look at these wars, I want them, in my book, they're in juxtaposition with the stock market, with the value of currency. You know, people talk about fractional reserve currency. Fractional reserve currency started in the 17th century, 16th century. This shit is old. I thought, you know, that started with the Federal Reserve. People talk Federal Reserve. Federal Reserve had a few predecessors. And that's what I outlined in my book. I wanted to show them how this thing even came to be about, how a nation falls into debt. Again, coming back to this whole nationalism thing. How does a nation fall into debt? What are some of the events that cause a nation to make a massive financial mistake? These are the questions people aren't asking.
War.
That's one. That's a big one.
Pandemics, apparently.
That's a two. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
And really, that's biological warfare. Oh, my bad. I didn't say too much. Never mind.
No. This is a topic I wanted to get into as well. I want to tell you guys about the official coffee of the Counterflow podcast, and that is Lorenzotti Coffee over at lorenzotti.coffee. I don't really want to specifically tell you about them because I drink it every morning, because I love it, because it's directly imported from Italy. It's in these vacuum-sealed packs. It's in these beautiful tins that look very good on your kitchen counter. Those aren't really the reasons I want to tell you about them. The real reason is because in this day and age, with all of the insanity going on, I think it's nice to be able to have companies that are very like-minded that we can support. And that's very helpful. You know, everyone's scared now, like, should I support this company? I don't know, are they crazy? Well, I can tell you, the guys at lorenzotti.coffee are really good guys. They're like-minded individuals, and they want to support shows like mine that you listen to. So I think if they're willing to give me a cut of the money coming into them from you guys, that should make you want to support them. You like this show, you want to support like-minded companies, well, here's one for you, Lorenzotti Coffee over at LORENZOTTI.coffee. I'll tell you one thing, if you type in promo code BUCK, B-U-C-K, at checkout, you will get 10% off of your order. You'll be supporting a very good company. The coffee is amazing, and it helps me out too. So if you like this show, give it some support. Now back to the show. There's I gotta, like you just kind of hinted at, I have to be careful how I ask some of these things as to not get kicked. There's big corporations, big pharma right now, intermingling with big government and trying to get people to take a potion that they've concocted for something that happened in 2020. It's interesting. One of the communities that is pushing back, or at least not accepting said potion, is the Black community, to which some of us have said, well, I could see why they might be skeptical when Big Pharma gets in the mix with big government. Do you see that?
So I use my common sense and then I ask the primary source. And a couple of primary sources, homies from the hood. So I asked myself, I said, is the hood with it or not? And I thought to myself, I always go back to the old maxim, the hood is Hotep. When you think Hotep, think about the hood. The hood is going to always be the most Hotep place in America. out of necessity. Because trust doesn't live too easy in the hood. So you don't trust nobody, especially not no government. The other thing is, all you got to do is go study the history of the Spanish flu. What did the government do last time when they had the outbreak that came from the military base? Remember that? Let me pull it right now. This was not 1918, not that one. It was a recent one. I want to say it was the 70s or 80s. Oh no, my bad. It wasn't Spanish flu. It was swine flu.
Okay.
It was swine flu. My bad. 1976. Here I go. Fort Dix, New Jersey. Yeah. All you gotta do is go study that 1976 swine flu outbreak, and go study that. You know, come to find out, they went out and did all of this. How do I say it? All of these measures were put out into the public. A bunch of people got sick. Come to find out that there really wasn't an outbreak. That's the story on the 1976 swine flu. Y'all go read the history on that. That's public. So when I see, I always tell people, we're living in a sitcom. The problem is the sitcom has run out of episodes.
Yes.
So all this stuff is reruns now. They done ran out of ways to mix and match. So now they're just trying to make new reruns. And it's just like, okay. That's why I like studying history, because when you do something in the present, I got a reflection for it in the past. And I can go look at it and I can study it. And I'm like, all right, what are they up to?
Yes. It may not always repeat itself, but it certainly rhymes quite often. Do you find in the inner cities or ghettos or Hotep, the hood, do you find that people are starting to wake up to some of this stuff?
They've always been awakened to this stuff.
Okay.
The Hotep was born out of the hood. Hotep was born out of the prisons. This was born out of Harlem. A bunch of so-called, I guess you call them black men, melanated men, come out of the Caribbean, settled in Harlem, settled in all over, man. But you got like Garvey out of Jamaica. You got Noble Drew Ali. You have a bunch of brothers. John Henry Clark, Dr. Ben, New York. And they settled in these, black communities. And there was always that knowledge. There was always that gnosis that always existed. And we saw it in hip hop. It left hip hop in 2000, right around the 2000s. But I always ask people, I said, do you remember when hip hop was Hotep? Remember when Tupac was wearing the African dashiki? Remember when Queen Latifah had her Nefertiti crown on? People remember this? So, when people ask me about the hood, I'm like, the hood came from Hotep. Like, that's our roots. So it's always going to be that. There's always going to be that level of skepticism. You're always going to have that Hotep uncle in your ear telling you about whatever conspiracy is happening now. It's always going to be a Hotep uncle at your Thanksgiving dinner that's always spouting. And so I'll be honest with you, sometimes you got some Hoteps, they're a little bonkers. They might take it too far. Their facts might not be all the way correct. They might be, pointing in the right direction, but it might be off a few degrees on the compass, but they mean well. But I think the greater point is they want you to investigate. They want you to start thinking and questioning things. They don't want you going along with the patterns, going along with the programming. And I think that's what their biggest fear is. Because if you come back and say, hey, did you know this? Then now it's a conversation, or you could just correct and say, yo, you kind of right, but this, but I feel you though,
Yes.
But it's that knowledge that you got to have, he's pointing you to something. You got to go investigate that.
Yeah, we have a similar version of it, and I suppose you could call it white culture, but the crazy uncle, maybe now they'll stereotype this as the crazy Trump-loving uncle who's talking about this topic we've been discussing on the potion from different big pharma companies, or maybe what happened in the last election, maybe something a little, sketchy around certain key states. stuff like that. So, and I do find it extremely valuable because while it's common to write this off as, oh, that's this crazy uncle so-and-so MAGA guy, there's valuable information to be found. There's a lot of red pills to be found in some of this discussion.
He might be drunk and a hypocrite, but he a little bit closer to the truth than you.
Yeah.
You know, so you might want to listen to your crazy uncle and ask him questions and go investigate what he's talking about, because he somewhat know what he's talking about, if not all the way.
I want to ask about the Great Society, LBJ's Great Society. I'm about 30 minutes from Austin, where unfortunately he's considered a hero, quite honestly. Yeah. And it seems to me like since his war on poverty, the Great Society started, the Black family has not necessarily become desecrated, but it's gone downhill as far as the structure of it because of stuff like the Great Society. And it seems like the stuff you do is the perfect antidote to some of that. Quit worrying about what the white people can do for you or the government can do for you. Build your own communities, work, code, this type of thing. Can you elaborate on some of that?
What'd you say it was called again? The Great Society?
Yeah, that's LBJ's whole movement.
The Great Society was the destruction of mutual aid societies. If you ever listen to Thaddeus Russell, he talks about this a lot.
Yes.
In fact, if you're a student of his and you don't know and talk about mutual aid societies, he might cuss you out.
Yes.
Mutual aid societies. So the Great Society was to destroy mutual aid societies. Integration was infiltration.
Yes.
Integration was disintegration. Thaddeus Russell put me up on that piece in Brown versus Board of Education, where they referred to, cultural norms. They have the word cultural in there. Go look at the text. So this isn't about Black people having their own. It's about the people in power telling white people they got to share their shit with Black people. And Black people have to assimilate to white culture. See, integration is assimilation. It's also amalgamation. You see, the people at the top don't operate off of race. They operate off of gene pool. It's only like 60 families.
Oh, right.
It's a small club. We ain't in it. Isn't that what George Carlin said?
Yeah.
So they're not operating off of race. They operate, this is my family. These are my cousins. And they intermarry with each other, right? And
yes.
Keep it all in the family. And there's good power there. And we don't act like that. We act like, hey, I'm going to choose this based upon my skin color and all this other stuff. And it's like, that's cool. But before you do all of that, you might want to make sure you got a strong family unit. Think about how America was constructed. It was constructed to separate children from their parents from a very early age. Then there's this thing about kick your kids out at 18 or send them away to college. All of that was to take them away from the farm, take them away from being productive for the family.
Right.
Because they know the power of when people stick together in packs and in families, because that's how they got their power. Hey, look, think about it. If you have 10 kids, you got enough for a corporation.
Yeah.
Look, you go learn design. You go here. And they're going to have the natural proclivities to these interests and skills on their own, and then everybody specializes and you form the whole corporation. And that's what these people do. You see them, they ship their family members from overseas. They come here and they share an apartment. There's 8 of them in an apartment. They run the gas station. They switch the hours. Next to you, 2-3 years later, all of them got Benzes. And their own gas station, So it's that strong family union that is the foundation of the nation. And that's what people miss. It's like, you're skipping steps. We want to build a strong nation. No, first you have to figure out what is the recipe for a strong family. Americans do not have the recipe for a strong family. You know, in Chinese culture,
Mm-hmm.
the woman wakes up in the morning, makes breakfast for the family, and everybody sits down and eats together. And nobody's allowed to touch their food until everyone touches their food at the same time. In America, we don't even have food together. We don't eat
Right.
together.
Yeah.
What is the recipe for the foundation of the family? What is that recipe for the family to rebuild that culture? That's what I'm trying to find. That's what I'm interested in.
Do you think
And
do you think it's been purposely and systematically?
yes,
Yes.
yeah. That's why I tell people, yo, don't date an American. If I was, if I was a foreigner, I wouldn't date myself and be like, oh, you're an American? Yeah. The scum of the planet. You're a scourge of the planet. Just from the culture. You don't have an upbringing.
Uh-huh.
Your mommy and daddy don't like each other. Your grandma, you sent your grandma off to go live in a nursing home. A nursing home is unheard of in some cultures.
Mm-hmm.
Unheard of. Daycare is unheard of. Everybody's got their own community. The community used to be the family. You know, you had a sister. See, some of these people, they come here, you know what they do? They knock on your door. You ready to sell? You ready to sell? Because they're going to move their sister in next door. And then the cousin next door. And next thing you know, they got the whole block.
Yeah.
They're not moving their sister. Oh, you go down to this state and I'm going to go on the West Coast. You go East Coast. Nah, it's that old, put a drop of water on a napkin and watch it spread.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
The Hispanic community has that family
Yes.
bond, and I've always been jealous of it because I grew up in LA and then San Antonio, and I saw it all the time, and I thought, I wish I had that. My family was much smaller, but the barbecues with cousins and aunts and uncles and always living close by. I found that attractive. I wish I had it.
Yes. You see what I'm saying? So when you intermarry with somebody with those customs, you can start to revive your family.
Yeah.
We got to stop breeding our family off of the American cultural values weren't derived by Americans. They were derived by foreigners.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about from Central and Eastern Europe, came over and formed it through entertainment. The American dream was created on a screen. The American dream was created on the screen.
Yeah.
Huh? Well, wasn't no real thing. The American dream was stripped from us from the first time they installed a central bank on these lands.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, you already used this phrase. I find it fascinating. I did hear you use it with Thaddeus as well. Integration is infiltration.
Infiltration.
There's white progressives that would cringe at that phrase.
Okay.
I would, and they're not really my audience, but there could be a couple. But can you explain that some more?
So it's the cringe that is the problem. I wrote just today in my email, you can sign up for my email newsletter. I send edicts out, briansharp.co or hotepjesus.com. And it's the cringe, right? So you see, the beast preys upon the ego. And a blinded ego makes blind decisions. It's real easy to get blinded by the ego. See, the ego looks at pieces of information and passes judgment. Almost immediately. A lot of times immediately. So it's passing judgment on said information, and then the reaction manifests as this thing we call cringe. So I ask, because they do a lot of weird shit over on the left.
Yeah.
And I try to wrap my mind around some of the stuff that they do. And when I can't, I just leave it to, well, they have free will. You know, if it makes them happy, I'm happy for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's how I feel. So when people cannot give the same respect, I go, I got it. Clouded by ego. You know, nothing can be had here. When you grow and you mature into your full self, because you're only operating off of half of yourself, then we can converse. In the meantime, you're a joke.
Mm-hmm.
So the only type of interaction I can have of you, because I can't have anything with you, but of you would be jokes. And that's why they get memed. Because that's what they are. They're a bunch of jokes. So the problem is people are taking jokes seriously. We can't be taking these cats seriously, bro. When that whole thing happened last year, we could have laughed them out of every single institution as a nation. We could have laughed them out of here like, ha, stop playing. We could have memed them and said, man, stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Just stop it. You know what I mean? But we took it serious. We got to stop taking these jokers serious. We got to stop even talking about them completely, you know, unless it's a joke.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So the integration is infiltration.
Yeah.
I got to ask you some more about that.
Yeah.
Explain what that is and why you get at that.
Well, infiltration is basically, for the purposes, is political or cultural subversion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so what they want to do is they want to insert the virus. The virus could manifest as watching TV, the habit of watching TV, for example. That's a real simple one. It could be scrolling on Facebook,
mm-hmm.
whatever that is. But there's something that happens in that culture that they insert that derails you from your culture. For example, marrying your daughter off. Well, what if your culture believed in arranged marriages?
Mm-hmm.
And then the screen started putting out all these flicks about women who flee their family and fall in love with Prince Charming. But none of them end off with Prince Charming leaving or beating on her. You know, like what usually happens at the end of that story because they left their culture. You know, with arranged marriages, I think arranged marriages need to come back. That needs to be a thing. And it doesn't even have to be like, hey, you are marrying this guy. It's like, no, you're going to have to pick from this pool of guys. And that's how you have these little cotillions and little dances. But again, it requires that small network of families that you know are both successful, respectful, and all have the same cultural values.
Yes.
And don't indulge in some of these ills in the society that, right? So everybody has that commonality. And then you're like, okay, well, I know all these gentlemen are lined up to be doctors, lawyers, engineers, or successful entrepreneurs. All right, so babe, pick from one of these guys. We know how they, and you know, and they court and they do their little dance and the kids get together and that's arranged, so to speak.
Right.
They look at you crazy. You said something like that.
Yeah. Yes.
And this is how you lose power. But again, that's just an example, an arbitrary example I gave you of how the integration. Because when you get next to people, you pick up their habits. White people gonna start acting like black people, and black people gonna start acting like white people. You're gonna start sharing cultural things. Yeah. It's human nature to even love foreign goods.
Uh-huh.
Right? It's like, oh, I got this from France. It's like, oh, wow, you got it from another place, right? But that's a thing with us. So you find that when you start putting people together and they're like, oh, wow, you got the white boy shoes on. It's like, but it's foreign. So it makes it like the thing that went viral today. A kid was rapping Mike Jones lyrics. Mm-hmm. It was a white boy. And they asked him something about what does it take to leave the hood? And he's like, I don't know anything about the hood. All I know is this Mike Jones verse. And he spits a Mike Jones verse. And everybody, you know, the black people that was in the flick who were speaking about that subject matter started dancing with him like, hey, you know that. Like, that's a good throwback. You know, but that's him being in close proximity to black culture. And now he's rapping.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? So you start picking up things. I'm not saying that's negative. Okay. I'm not saying it's positive. I'm just saying we pick up on things from other people.
Uh-huh.
So that's how you start to slowly infiltrate the culture of Black people. You can start changing what they eat. They went from eating this to Doritos.
Yeah, yeah.
They went from drinking this to Gatorade, right?
Right.
Just little things by bringing them into American society. The Mormons, I don't know if they got Gatorade on their plantation.
Right.
The Amish, I doubt they got Gatorade on their plantation.
Yeah.
I doubt they got problem with their women either.
Yeah.
I don't think they women got OnlyFans accounts, and I don't think they shaking their butt on Instagram.
Right.
I think the kids respect they pops. So
that's interesting, and there are these communities, I guess we could call it, or sects of people, SECTS, excuse me, that like you said, Mormons, and I've noticed Indians families from India, very, very close knit, marry within their own culture, and become, they're usually quite well off too, and they kind of keep that going like a cultural pride, and that does seem to get lost when the governments try to integrate all of these people. I've always thought it was cool when you could go to San Francisco and see Chinatown, and you go to New York and you see the Irish area and the Italian area. Yet for some reason, I think in some kind of and society at large, that's looked upon as, well, you should be able to just intermingle and mix and get rid of your own little separate cultures, and we are American and have that as your culture. But that kind of dilutes the original cultures and starts to ruin them.
That's the desire to control people. That's the hate of, you're not like me. I don't understand it. People fear what they don't understand. So they see people do things they don't understand. It's like, shit used to be back in the day, if you didn't have a certain religion, they was like, oh, you're a witch, and they hung you, and all types of wild shit. So, things that are foreign sometimes strike fear within. It's just ignorant people, obviously. But it scares them, cultural clash. So it's like, hey, be like me. That's just one example. But the thing that's missing is free will. Allow people to group up how they group up. If all these people want to huddle in a corner and wear black makeup and big black boots and bob their head to heavy metal, fucking go do that shit. You know what I'm saying? People are going to group up based upon interest and allow people to do that. Problem is, when people do that, they get a lot of power. And it's harder to disintegrate the greater American culture, right? Because I always say this, it's like when people group up together, they start creating their own ideologies, their own subcultures, sub-communities, so on and so forth. And they're harder to infiltrate and infect, with your garbage culture, So what they want to do is they want to make everybody like each other. We have to be clones of each other. So they want a group of clones so that when they say, hey, do X, we don't question do X because we've already been conditioned to like X, So it's not about the rugged individualism. It's not even about the rugged individual groups or sub-communities of people. It's about making everybody drones and clones. Yeah.
Is there a war on masculinity, in your opinion?
Oh, it has to be in order to, and the thing is, a lot of people are associating this now, but if, I would say about a decade ago, I realized that masculinity was under attack when I started studying war. I'm like, what happens, for example, I was listening to Thomas Sowell the other day, Intellectuals and Racism or something like that. And it was talking about France and how France ended up with all short men. It's because they took their tallest men, again, gene pools, took the tallest men and sent them out to war. So you killed off all the tall people in your society, right? So now that's why French men are short. So look at how they killed off so-called masculinity. What if your masculinity was in the height of men? Black community, Vietnam, devastating. He took all of the already struggling class of people, made them conscription, made them go fight the war. If they didn't, you'd lock them up. Made them go fight this war. To cope with the conditions of the war, they took on drug addictions. They came back with drug addictions. Then you fueled the drug industry. Imagine the devastation of those two things combined to black men, right? So then they come from war, they do the drugs, then it's mass incarceration. That's when Nixon comes out with his laws and all of that, right? Rockefeller laws and all that shit. Hammering, putting black men. So was this an attack on masculinity? Absolutely. They did it with white men in World War I. A lot of men lost their lives. And they still do it. But that for me, before we even talk about this cultural attack on masculinity, because we know that's some cleaning up. That's the cleanup. They got you already when they destroyed your gene pool, sending your best off the war. Your masculinity was in the war. Because if you was a punk and you wasn't going to go to war, what would you do? You'd probably like slam your arm in the door the day you had to show up and be like, yo, look, I got a broken arm. You know, you punk out, sometimes for reasons. But you had a lot of men, what were they saying? I want to die for my country. You got a lot of men signing up. Yeah. That's the masculine energy you need. And you sent them off to the front lines. It's like, you just destroyed masculinity. And now that's why it's so easy for these soy boys and simps to manifest, because you knocked out the rare breed.
Yeah, geez, that's almost, I'm very anti-war, but I'm almost seeing this picture where we can get rid of the simps and soy boys somehow, put them on the front lines. That sounds terrible. I want to play a word association game with you.
All right.
Just give me your immediate thoughts when you hear each word.
All right.
Trump.
Greatest president ever.
Okay, shit, and now I got to dig into that just a touch. Because just if there are any progressives listening to this, which I doubt, but I would get a kick out of the cringe that they just had when you said that. Just real quick, why do you think that?
Oh, what is the role of the president, right? Well, one thing we know is that he's not the founder of the country and he's not the CEO. He's only the president. People give that position too much clout. That's one thing. So I've already reduced him to like an underling.
Yeah.
Okay? To me, it's just a figurehead. When Obama, I thought Obama's the second best president ever.
Oh, now the other side of my audience is cringing. I love it.
Yeah. You see what I'm saying? Now, why? Well, what's the president's job? First of all, the president's job is to lie to your ass.
Yeah.
To keep you as calm as possible. If it was bad guys coming in your house and the kids ask, what's that noise downstairs? The mama not going to tell them it's bad guys downstairs. She's going to say, oh, don't worry, babe. It's nothing. While dad goes and handles the BI. So the president has to lie to you about everything that's going on. He has to be good at that first and foremost, and he has to do it very commandingly. Obama was a great liar.
Yeah.
He was a great liar. He told some great lies. He's a great actor. He was such a great actor, I'm surprised he isn't in Hollywood yet. I know he's got the Netflix. I'm waiting for him to do a movie with like Denzel and like Wesley Snipes or somebody. Trump, to me, was great for one reason. Called out the media.
Yeah.
If you listen to old clips, you'll see clips where Michelle Obama says, she couldn't thank the media enough.
Yeah.
They were media darlings, even still.
Yeah.
So they had a lot of assistance. So to me, it was like, well, why didn't Trump get the assistance? Also, if it wasn't for Trump, I wouldn't have the platform I have. Trump was the stimulus package. I told people, I said, if you ain't get your money during the Trump administration, you messed up. It was grifting season. A lot of money was flowing under them 4 years under Trump. Look at the country now.
Yeah.
Prices is way up. The well drying up. It wasn't like, because he's a businessman. So Wall Street was like, yo, it's business as usual.
Yeah.
Money was exchanging hands. They say we're in a bubble. You know? So for me, I recognize it as an opportunity. Yeah, get out the way. Let's reduce some of these taxes. I don't care if the rich benefit from the taxes. I benefit from the tax cuts too.
Right.
You know? And I loved how he handled things like CNN. CNN is garbage.
Mm-hmm.
It's garbage. It's garbage. And his bravado. The pure entertainment that came from Trump. Where are you? Bro, media companies doubled their viewership during the Trump administration.
Yep.
And it crashed when he left.
Yeah.
Social media usage has crashed since he's left. The only thing that saved that was the event last year.
Yeah.
Everybody being home.
Yeah.
But he was a stimulus package. Trump was a walking stimulus package for this country. And it just created tremendous amounts of opportunity. I wouldn't even be relevant if he wasn't around. It made politics, pop culture. It gave me things. He brought the conversation to the forefront. People had to start speaking up and start saying how they felt about things. People say he divided the country. Yeah, he did with the help of the media. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like he did it all on his own, but the media used him to divide the country because he was so one-sided, which I loved. He was on my side.
Yeah. Right.
But he exposed the lack of tolerance. He really woke up a lot of Black people too. Like, there was like, wait, hold on. You know, like there's like, now you see Sonny Johnson coined that phrase. There's this new renaissance in Black conservatism. You see that spawned up because of Trump. So Black conservatism is coming back. And
so you do see that as well?
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
Yeah. And the Sonny Johnson brand of things.
Yeah.
I absolutely. I think the whole ecosystem is pretty healthy as a whole. Include Candace Owens and the rest of the characters in the story. I think everybody contributes very well to the mission.
For all things CBD related, there is only one stop for you guys. That is PalomaVerdeCBD.com. Once again, PalomaVerdeCBD.com. It is owned by some friends of mine, a wonderful couple out of San Antonio, Carlos and Vanessa. Extremely genuine, extremely fun to hang out and party with, I can tell you that. But really, they're truly very hard workers, and they put a lot of love and special touches into this company, PalomaVerdeCBD.com. It really made me proud to have them as a sponsor. Just to list a few of their products, I'll go ahead and tell you some. They've got the Sleep Bundle Combo Pack. They've got the Mint CBD Tinctures. They got several flavors of the CBD tinctures. And I love the Cool Menthol Sports Cream. The moment you have a sore muscle, I'm not just saying this to sell it. It was genuinely the best sports cream I've ever used before. And it was amazing. I love it. I'm glad to have them as a sponsor so I get this stuff. And you know who really loves them? Selflessly. My favorite stuff that they provide is the pet stuff. And that's because my French Bulldog Lux needs this stuff. The CBD dog chews and the pet CBD tinctures. We put it on his food every morning and every evening. These dog chews are basically like dog treats for him. He used to walk around like a little old man, French Bulldog, and now he's like a very young and tough French Bulldog. He races me around the house because of these CBD products. I'm so glad to have these guys as a sponsor. Please give them business. They're very wonderful people, like-minded individuals, and I've got a promo code for you. So if you enter BUCK, that's my name, Buck, at checkout, you will get 25% off of your order over $75. That's 25% off everything over $75. Please give them a visit, PalomaVerdeCBD.com, enter promo code BUCK, and you will be extremely happy that you paid this wonderful couple a visit and gave them some business. Let's get back to the show. All right, I got another word, or another name.
Okay.
Kamala Harris.
Oh, man, she kind of fine. That's what I think of her. She's just an object.
All right. That's amazing. I love that. BLM.
Oh man, the demise of the Black community, the Trojan horse, the malignant tumor that plagues our political ideology and leanings, and it just skews everything. Insidious corporation.
What do you think their actual aim is?
Cultural subversion. I was calling it out from the very beginning, 2015. You go see my video, about Black Lives Matter. I said Black Lives Matter is the rainbow agenda. I said it plain as day. It is what it is. And it's fine if you're that, but come out and say Rainbow Lives Matter. Don't say Black Lives Matter. And then you, on your website, you say mothers, parents, and children. It's like mothers, parents. You mean mothers and fathers? Is that what you mean? Like, how you just going to completely omit men from the picture based upon an entire industry of grifting that was created off of Black men getting killed? It's like, come on, like, what are we doing here? And then you go look at all the people funding it and whatnot. It's real murky, man. It's real murky.
All right. I guess this kind of goes with that, and I'm done with the word association game, but does it feel to you like elements on the left are co-opting actual Black causes and using them for their own power?
Well, that's the technique of the socialist. You see, the socialist always goes to the minority.
Okay.
You got Mensheviks and Bolsheviks. Mensheviks means minority. Bolsheviks means majority. So, they usually go after the minority. It could be the disabled. It could be women. Whatever demographic is neglected, that's who they prey on. And they use their causes to profit at the end of the day, to gain cultural notoriety, rise in status. You put together a little project, next thing you know, you got a BET Awards.
Yeah.
You're not even Black, but you got a BET Award for grifting off of Black death, that type of stuff. So yeah, they Vonnie, shout out to Vonnie Brusto. I interviewed him on my channel, Vonnie Media Mogul. And he was talking about when he worked with government, they sit in a room and they just come up with problems. Not problems that they actually want to solve. They just come up with problems and then they slap a budget on it and then they burn through the budget and find another problem. It's just to keep the money rolling in, keep the department going. And they find problems. The thing is, if they actually solve the problems, the department would dissolve.
Yeah, right.
Wouldn't need it anymore. And that's what happened with Thomas Sowell. Thomas Sowell used to be a diehard socialist. How did Thomas Sowell stop becoming socialist, become a capitalist? He started working in government. And he was talking about the minimum wage problem. He said, hey, look, I got a solution for the minimum wage problem. And they were like, slow down, Smokey.
Yep.
And he's like, what is wrong? And it's like, oh, they actually don't want to fix this. No, they want to use the minority to not use that word, to profit.
Okay. Do you consider yourself a mentor?
Yes. By default, something that I've had to capitulate to.
Okay.
For a while, I said, I'm me. I'm on the internet. I'm sharing me with the world. And I have no responsibility to lead or be anybody's mentor. I'm not your role model. Until people started imitating me. And I said, oh, fuck. I do have a fucking responsibility to this people, because people are going to imitate us, going to mimic you. That's the first part of learning. Then you learn a skill like copywriting, or you learn a skill like rapping. First thing you do is you copy your favorite rapper.
Right.
Till you find your own style.
Yep.
So I was like, shit, I got to clean up my act. I have to bring the best of myself every time I step in front of the camera. I have to be cognizant of these things. So I'm like, oh man, by putting myself out there, I'm automatically submitting myself to the responsibility of mentor and role model. And yeah.
I'll give you the floor before we get out of here. Anything you want to say, preach about, discuss, point out to people, something you want people to understand about you, anything you want. The floor is yours.
I'll keep riffing on that point.
Okay.
Everybody's always watching, especially the kids. Even when you don't think the kids is watching, the kids is watching. They see everything, and kids don't do what we say they do, what you do. So instead of trying to tell the kids what to do what the kids are supposed to be doing. Do it. And do it around the babies, most importantly. I remember I used to read a lot. I read a lot. This is what I do. And my son was a baby. He used to walk around with this chess book in his hand. Hey, he couldn't read. He was just a baby. But he just knew he should have a book because he sees daddy with a book. So he'd walk around with that book everywhere. And you see him with a book now. So these habits pick up as long as you make sure the kids are seeing you with these habits. If the kids see you lazying around, they're going to mimic that. That's what I should be doing. You're my first example of things. So that's why I said, you asked me if I'm a mentor, and I'm like, I gotta be. I've fucking got 190,000 Twitter followers and, 50-something thousand YouTube subscribers. It's like I stream and get millions of hits and impressions. It's like, as we're here and we're, that word impression, right? We take it so loosely as just some arbitrary digital marketing metric. And it's like, no, what is the impression that you make upon people when they see you, when they perceive your being? How do they feel after they leave your presence, after they leave your transmission? How do they feel, right? So, our show, we do every Thursday, tonight, actually. Hotep's Been Told You, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on my YouTube channel, Hotep Jesus. People always say, it's like, we're their relief. They listen to all this news and the world seems like it's going to end.
Yep.
And then they come and they watch our show and they're like, you guys make it seem like all these world problems are just one big joke. Right?
Yeah,
and it comes full circle to our earlier conversation where I was telling you, man, you got to make a joke of this shit.
Yeah.
And you got to do it. And I hate to go all Deepak Chopra on us, but vibrationally. And I'm very scientific when I go into my spiritual stuff. When somebody's scared or when somebody's cold, they shake. That's vibration. When you speak without the larynx and all of that, without your vocal cords, ain't no sound coming out. Not sharp sound that you can craft into words and sing. These vibrations mean something. Now, just because you can't detect it on the physical level doesn't mean they can't strap a device to you and detect it. In fact, they call these things EKG. They also have the ones that they do for the lie detector test.
Yeah.
What do when they hook you up to these machines? They're measuring the frequency of your body. So when you sit there and you watch this video of somebody getting their head blown off, this kid getting his head blown off by the cops, and this is the 8th time you've had to watch this black man shot in the street, and everybody's telling you that police out to get you on this white supremacy and all this other stuff. That stuff takes a toll on you vibrationally. When you're in that circumstance, you get pulled over by a cop, you have a situation like Sandra Bland, R.I.P.
Yeah.
This is someone who was turned up because of the media, hype, hoopla, and all of that. So when she was at a traffic stop, dude was about to let her go with a warning. But she just couldn't stay calm long enough. She was in the wrong vibrational state. And therefore, the cop got agitated and escalated. She ended up dead, right? Sad tale. So I'm always cognizant of the impressions that I put out that put people, what's the vibrational state? When you come and you interact with Hotep Jesus, how did you say you felt when you left? Did you feel down? Did you feel up? Majority of the time people watch Hotep's Been Told You, they're like, man, this is my show. because they afterwards they feel good, they feel great, they laughing, they get to kick back, have a little bit of wine, and just laugh. And that's so valuable. That's why comedy is so valuable. They even in Asia, they do laugh therapy. People come up with diseases, they like, yo, we're gonna put you on laugh therapy. People get better, right? Because the natural healthy homeostasis of the body has a frequency for each individual. And we got to find that. And if we can find that, we lead healthy lives. And a lot of that has to do with mood. So you talk about impressions and being a mentor. The first thing I want to just impress upon people is lead with the best example of yourself every time out. Everything you do, the best version of yourself. That tweet you was going to send, was it the best version of yourself? That reply to that person, clean it up. Clean it up. Take some of the, even they were cursing at you, cool. Take some of the vitriol out of that. Out of that tone that you're about to send. Come out of yourself. Become the watcher and respond like God would respond. From a place of wanting to understand. From a place of wanting to find a middle ground. Speak to each other that way and we'll render the left impotent. I digress.
No, that's excellent. I think I tweeted something last night. You see people in our circles get black-pilled and pessimistic and upset because they just can't change enough people and can't influence enough people. But to be in the default version of a human being where you don't really have to think about anything, you just walk around blindly and turn on the radio and you just like what's ever on and you just don't know anything and you watch the news and that's what's really going on to you. It's fun to do what we do. It's fun to read and research and evolve and adapt to new information. And while it's not a large percentage of the population doing it, I think that's what makes some of us kind of special. And because that's fun, we like to learn new things. We like to get knowledge on what's really going on. I don't want to turn on CNN and sit there blindly and go, I guess that's the news, and turn it off and just go listen to whatever pop radio is on and think, I guess that's talent. I find it more entertaining to do what we do and research and study and learn and make yourself better, again, to be, like you mentioned earlier, the best version of yourself that you can be.
Yeah, you got to be an open book. Stagnant water grows mold.
Yes.
We got to continue to be moving. And that's why we can't hold on to ideas. Once you become dogmatic, it's going to lead to your demise. Intellectually and mentally, you'll fail to keep up with the evolution of how culture moves in America, so on and so forth. You know, you got to be able to stay with the times or keep up with the Joneses, as they would say, right? But yeah, you got to be on your shit, man. My brain went like 35 different places. And sometimes, when Kanye was on Rogan.
Yes.
You know, I relate to him so much because sometimes I'll forget my train of thought because like 30 different things will come. So when I speak, I have to choose one and then like say it as fast as possible so I can catch the next feed, because the shit we're living in is so dynamic, man. There's so many moving parts and pieces that are vital to success, you know?
Yes, agreed. I saw a workout routine recently that included read 10 pages after your workout at some point of nonfiction every time you work out. And I thought, what a fucking brilliant idea to combine the two things I love, lifting weights and doing workouts and reading. So I stuck that in my mind. And so, you know, every day I work out, at some point I need to read 10 pages at least of nonfiction. I thought that was brilliant.
Well, I used to think, I like that. First of all, let me start and say I like that. I used to be a nonfiction guy. Say, yo, you got to read nonfiction. Until I read fiction.
Okay.
Ben Settle, copywriting guy, said, if you ever want to get better at writing copy, read fiction. I was like, all right, let me check this shit out. So I was like, well, okay, what's the closest compromise between nonfiction and fiction? All right, Orwell.
Yeah, right. Yes, exactly.
So I pull out the Orwell, and in the first page, I completely understood what he meant, because your vocabulary just explodes.
Yeah.
And the colorful language makes things pop and come into your minds. You become a better orator, you become a better writer. So I think it makes you a more right and exact man, as Francis Bacon would say. Because you have to write. That's the piece that a lot of people miss. It's like, I think he says, reading maketh a full man, and writing maketh a full and exact man, or something, Sir Francis Bacon. So you have to write. Reading is not it. Writing is where it ends, but the writing doesn't get good until you read the fiction. So that's where it kind of comes together. It's like the nonfiction to make you sound smart, right? The writing will sharpen your smartness, and the fiction will make your writing better. So it's like this cyclical thing that just keeps going back and forth and just reinvigorate. So I force myself to. That's why I included a fictional story in my new book, because I wanted people to have that. I wanted them to have that good mix. And I think to separate fiction from nonfiction is to separate the yin from the yang.
Okay.
It's to separate the man and woman. These things work together.
Mm-hmm.
So I never want to do that. But yes, I think nonfiction should come first.
Okay, sure.
Over fiction, but not in lieu of fiction. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Now I understand why my copywriting sucks too. Maybe it's the only nonfiction. All right, then I'm going to get some fiction. And George Orwell, unfortunately, is a good place to start right now in these times.
But you want to be an open book, right? You stagnant water grows mold. And I always say, don't believe anything, question everything. So people ask me, well, what do you believe? And I'm like, I'm about to disappoint you, because I don't believe shit. I'm really going to disappoint you. I'm like, I don't believe because I'm afraid to die.
Yeah, right.
I can't hold on to too many beliefs, because when you believe something, you esoterically die.
Yeah. Right.
Kill yourself. You've stopped growing in that area of subject matter.
Yep.
That you've capped yourself. This is what I believe. You're capped off.
Yep.
I'm trying to reach for the stars.
Yes. Thank you. There's been this discussion points many of us have had in the last month, I'd say, within my circles, and we call it post-libertarianism. And boy, we got some hate and some attacks from people that basically wanted to plant their flag at pure libertarianism and then stop growing.
Oh, no.
So we got, does post-libertarian means you gave up all your principles? That kind of thing. Like, I read Rothbard, I'm stopping from here, I stopped reading after this, and anything further than that I hate,
Yeah. No, I love changes like that, especially when things need upgrading.
Yep.
Especially when things get usurped.
Yes. Any book recommendations you'd throw out there for people?
Yes. I'll pull out the one on top. Fundamental Checkmates by Antonio Gude, I believe. I'm not sure how you pronounce that name. I play chess.
Okay.
I'm quite terrible at it, but it makes me better at the very least. Studying to be a national master. I'm getting better. I'm very optimistic on achieving that goal. Funny thing is, when I first started studying this book, I was taking the problems, right? I'll show you a page in here. So the page comes with wording, explanations, and problems, right? Or puzzles, or set pieces, right? And I was plugging each one into the computer and saving them to the database. Then I hung out with my coach in Miami about a month ago, a few weeks ago maybe. And he said when he reads chess books, he reads them like a normal book, like he lays down on the couch and just reads them. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. It was funny because at that same session he had a private training with us. And At that same session, we do these mate and twos, but we do these mate and twos at the master level, right? And we do them with the pieces. So this time we were doing them with no pieces. I had the board. I half cheated. There's no pieces, but I had the board to look at. And it would tell us where the pieces are, and you have to find the mate and two, right?
Okay.
So that kind of cracked something in my brain. Like I just became better at chess after that lesson. In 2 hours now, it's just like Jedi leveled up, next level 2, right? And then when he said it, I understood, right? I have to be able to visualize what's happening as I'm looking at this, reading the moves that are being made. It'll make you better at chess. So you can get better at chess without actually playing. So why am I saying all this? I'm saying this because as someone in the Deepak Chopra world of things, manifesting, I want to manifest my desires. Well, manifesting your desires isn't based upon, people like to write down, what do you call them? Affirmations.
Yeah.
Affirmations is a dead industry. It's overrated, it's superficial, it's superfluous, it's terrible. Not terrible. Shouldn't say that. It's not terrible. It can help a little bit. Really, what you need are visualizations. What do they call them? Vision boards? Vision boards are way better.
Right.
Vision boards are way better. I support those. But visualization, you have to visualize, for example, if you want a car, have you test drove it? Have you sat in the seat? Go and visit the house you want. Look at it, walk around, then go back home, close your eyes and see it and be in that house. You have to project yourself into the future. This is why they talk about time travel. Mystics time travel. No, we project ourselves into the future as we want to be. The point in time is arbitrary. God's going to decide the time in which this thing comes to fruition. But we project ourselves there mentally. That's what chess does. It tweaks your visualization. You'll even get a higher score in your IQ test, because if you've ever taken these IQ tests, they make you visualize how these patterns and things. Yep. And so it's pattern recognition is one of the intelligences. Yep. So you get a bit of that too. So that's why I suggest chess, because it helps you manifest your desires through the practice of visualization.
Excellent. Well done. Plug away anything. You've mentioned your show a few times. Plug anything you want.
Go to hotepjesus.com right now. Go get my book, The Patriot Report. It's my 3rd installation. I got another book coming soon, and I'm working on that with an attorney. But this one, The Patriot Report, is paramount information that every American needs to know about money as it relates to the history of the United States. Because what you think you know about the gold standard, what you think you know about fractional reserve banking, if you know anything about these subjects, about where did the money go? Where did the gold go? I'm going to show you not only where it went, I'm going to show you the path it traveled to get there. I'm not going to show you where it went, actually. Let me take that back. I'm not even going to show you where it went. I'm going to show you the path it traveled, and you get to tell me where the gold went. Because it's going to be obvious. You're going to be like, oh, fuck. Are you serious? Wow. Follow the money. So I gave you the money trail and let you decide for yourself what to do with that information. And it's quite obvious once you get to the end of the trail. But I detail all of it going back to the 16th century Europe and then all the way through to World War I, World War II. We're going to talk about the Lusitania. We're going to talk about all the events that in conversations with Wilson, President Woodrow Wilson, all those conversations that coerced him into that war. And then we're going to talk World War II and Pearl Harbor. Yeah, it gets real. So go get that. It's called The Patriot Report, Unmasking the Conspiracy of Money and War, hotepjesus.com.
Excellent. I'll link to that in the show notes page for this episode. Hotep Jesus, thank you so much, sir. Thanks for doing this with me.
It's a pleasure, man. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. My pleasure. What a great way to end that conversation. I loved like the last 10 minutes more than the whole damn conversation. That was really good. Of course, I loved the whole thing. Hotep Jesus is quite interesting, and I really enjoyed having him on the show. I hope to get him back at some point. I will have him here in October, like I said, and tickets are still available to that. So like I said, I will have the link to that event so you can buy the tickets. In every show, basically that I put out until then. You can just go to the notes and find it. And click on there, order your tickets, come out and hang with us here in Lockhart, Texas in October. And like I mentioned at the top of the show, YouTube page is going strong. Subscribe on there. Give me a rating and review if you guys do that kind of stuff on iTunes. It does help get the show out to the algorithm. And like I said, Telegram group. We got all kinds of stuff. The website where, okay, thank you very much. You guys have purchased every last Death to Tyrants shirt that was on clearance. They are gone. They are forever gone, so I appreciate that. We still have Counterflow podcast shirts on there that you can buy. I am sold out of extra large Counterflow shirts, but we've got the other sizes available. Check there. It's got everything you need to know on the website, counterflowpodcast.com. Got all my links like Twitter, @BuckRebel, all of that good stuff, counterflowpodcast.com. And until next week, you guys have an excellent one. See ya.
You get split in fucking half, but I call him the hologram brass. But I am the center inside the placenta of math. You clash with cyanide gas and die fast. Rhythmical equivalent of solids, liquid and gas. We smash your sinus with the power of Lord Titus. But I am the virus inside of the iris of Cyrus.
Like the sound of the Counterflow podcast? Our audio production is provided by Podsworth Media. Check them out at podsworth.com.
This has been the Counterflow Podcast, a part of the Renegade Media Network.